If you're an older man watching this right now, I need you to understand something that might shake you. Younger women are not looking at you for the reasons you think. It's not your car, it's not your bank balance, and it's definitely not the image you've built in your head. There is something far deeper, something you've overlooked, something you've underestimated your entire life. And once you hear it, you will never look at yourself or them the same way again. Because the truth is, younger women don't glance at you by accident. They're reading you like a book, measuring you without a word, observing the one thing you don't even know you carry. You think you're invisible because you're older, because the world moves fast, because youth dominates everything. But what you have is something youth can't fake, can't buy, and can't learn quickly. And the moment a younger woman spots it, her mind takes a snapshot she won't forget. You're about to hear the reason that nobody talks about, the reason men your age overlook, the reason women much younger pause for half a second longer when you walk into a room. It's not charm, it's not looks, it's not power in the loud, obvious sense. It's something rare, something quiet, something earned. And it's exactly why younger women pay attention in ways you've never noticed. Because you were too busy doubting yourself to realize the impact you already had. Stay with me. Because once you understand this, you will stop chasing validation and start owning the energy that younger women already feel from you. This is the shift that changes everything. You see, when people say younger women are attracted to older men, they always assume it's about the age itself. But that's never the truth. Age on its own is irrelevant. Age is just the clock ticking. What actually draws a younger woman in is the story behind that age. She doesn't see numbers, she sees layers. She sees a man who has lived through enough life to no longer be controlled by his insecurities. She sees someone who carries himself with the weight of experience, not the weight of anxiety. And that difference is visible long before you even speak. A younger woman can sense when a man has built himself through years of trial and error. She may not articulate it, but she feels it immediately. It's in the way you pause instead of rushing to answer. It's in the way your eyes settle calmly instead of scanning for validation. It's in the way your energy doesn't compete with the room, it settles the room. Younger women are sensitive to energy, and older men who have done the internal work carry a frequency that cannot be faked. It's composed, it's grounded, it's mature. That's the story behind the age, and that is what she responds to. Because let's be honest, the body ages, but the soul sharpens. An older man who has lived consciously develops a depth that younger men simply haven't had the time to grow into. And younger women aren't attracted to the wrinkles, they're attracted to the wisdom behind them. They aren't drawn to the gray hair, they're drawn to the lessons that created it. They aren't fascinated by the years, they're fascinated by what those years have carved into your character. Younger women admire older men because there is an emotional contrast they experience immediately. Most young men operate from fear of losing her, fear of not being enough, fear of rejection, fear of appearing weak. Their identity is still fragile, forming, trying to prove itself. But an older man has already lost, already fallen, already failed, already been embarrassed, already been betrayed, already rebuilt himself. And on the other side of all that comes something incredibly attractive: clarity. This is the story younger women feel. A man who knows who he is doesn't need to convince anyone. He doesn't need to impress. He doesn't need to perform. His presence alone does the talking. That's what makes younger women look. Not the age, the energy shaped by the age. It's like a book. A brand new book might be shiny and untouched, but it doesn't have the depth of a book whose pages are worn from life. Younger women are not looking for someone who appears perfect. They're drawn to someone who has lived enough to no longer fear imperfection. They want someone who has seen the world from different angles, someone who doesn't panic in uncertainty, someone who has been tested by life instead of protected from it. So the attraction isn't physical, it's psychological, it's philosophical, it's grounded in the human instinct to gravitate toward someone who brings emotional stability. Younger women don't look at older men because they're older, they look because they sense a story, a narrative of growth, resilience, self-awareness, and discipline. And these traits are rare, not tied to age, but often refined through age. Older men underestimate how visible that story is. They think their struggles made them less desirable, when in reality, those struggles made them more compelling. A man who has faced himself, confronted his weaknesses, and taken accountability becomes someone who cannot be easily shaken. Younger women can feel that strength even before they consciously notice it. They may say, "There's something about him," because they feel the story, even if they don't have the words. And here's the ironic part. Younger women are not seeking a father figure, nor a replacement for youth. They are seeking emotional elevation. They are attracted to the sense of being grounded, understood, and guided by someone whose internal battles have already been fought and won. A younger man may offer excitement, but an older man offers direction. A younger man may offer energy, but an older man offers wisdom. A younger man may offer attraction, but an older man offers meaning. That meaning is the story behind the age. In conversations, this difference becomes undeniable. When a younger woman speaks, she notices that an older man listens differently. He listens to understand, not to respond. He's not dissecting her words to find a way to impress. He's absorbing her meaning. He approaches life with patience instead of impulse. His confidence is rooted in reality instead of potential. She feels seen rather than judged. And that sense of being understood is intoxicating. She looks at him and sees a man who has walked through fires she can't even imagine. She sees someone whose silence has substance. Someone whose advice isn't recycled from motivational videos, but earned through his own mistakes. Someone whose presence makes her feel safe, not because he's older, but because he's done the internal work younger men haven't had the time or life experience to complete. That is the story behind the age, and that is the real attraction. What older men must understand is this: younger women are not drawn to what you are. They are drawn to what you've become. They don't admire your age, they admire the character forged through that age. They don't want your past. They want the wisdom that came out of your past. Your story is the magnet, not your years. The confidence you've built, the discipline you've learned, the presence you've earned. This is the real reason younger women look at you longer than you expect. And the most empowering part, you didn't have to act, pretend, or perform to earn that attraction. Life shaped you into it. Experience carved it into you. Failure taught it to you. Time sharpened it. Younger women aren't looking at you because of your age. They're looking at you because age turned you into a man who finally knows himself. A powerful truth to leave in your mind. She isn't drawn to the number of years you've lived. She's drawn to the strength you built surviving them. What most people never understand is that younger women aren't drawn to older men because of the years they've lived, but because of the energy those years produced. There is a certain calmness, a grounded sense of self, an emotional steadiness that doesn't scream for attention, yet commands attention effortlessly. Younger women sense the difference immediately, even if they don't consciously analyze it. They feel the contrast between a man who is still constructing his identity and a man who has already built one. That grounded presence is what makes older men stand out in a world overflowing with noise, impulse, and emotional chaos. Younger men, through no fault of their own, are often still living in reaction mode. They want to impress quickly, respond quickly, escalate quickly. Their minds are busy. Their emotions are loud. Their insecurities are fresh. But an older man who has lived long enough to experience wins, losses, heartbreaks, successes, disappointments, and realizations carries a different emotional temperature. His calmness is not laziness, it's mastery. His silence isn't a lack of confidence, it's a sign of depth. His slow responses aren't hesitation, they're deliberate. That's the kind of energy younger women feel the moment he enters the room. A grounded man moves differently. He doesn't rush to speak because he's not trying to prove anything. He doesn't argue for dominance because he doesn't need validation. He doesn't chase attention because he is already comfortable with himself. That psychological security is incredibly attractive. Younger women recognize it instinctively because it creates an emotional environment they can relax into. When a man is emotionally grounded, she doesn't feel the pressure to perform, she doesn't feel the tension of competition, and she doesn't sense the instability that comes with insecurity. She feels safe, she feels seen, she feels understood on a deeper, more stable level. There is a psychological truth: people gravitate toward the person with the calmest nervous system. The one who doesn't get triggered easily. The one who can hold his composure when others fall apart. The one who can navigate emotion without drowning in it. Older men, having lived through enough life events, naturally develop that kind of emotional regulation. They've learned that reacting too fast leads to mistakes. They've learned that ego-driven decisions destroy relationships. They've learned that silence is sometimes more powerful than argument. Younger women feel that energy immediately because it contrasts with the emotional volatility they often see in younger men. A younger woman may meet 10 young men who talk loudly, brag, flex, exaggerate, and desperately try to show value. She meets one older man who simply exists with confidence and self-control, and she notices. He doesn't need attention to feel worthy. He doesn't need a crowd to feel important. His value isn't external, it's internal. This is the calm energy that younger women gravitate toward without even realizing why. It's not about him being older, it's about him being centered. Another thing younger women notice is the way older men handle pressure. They don't panic over small things. They don't emotionally collapse when something goes wrong. They don't rely on others to regulate their moods. They've built inner discipline. They've seen enough of life to understand that problems are temporary, emotions are not always accurate, and patience is more valuable than impulsiveness. That calmness becomes magnetic. Younger women feel more grounded themselves just by being in the presence of a man who doesn't let life shake him easily. It's not that younger women want an older man to lead them or fix them. It's that they enjoy the emotional climate he creates. A grounded man becomes a mirror. He reflects clarity instead of chaos. He reflects direction instead of confusion. He reflects emotional strength instead of emotional instability. A younger woman feels safer expressing herself because she knows he won't react impulsively, judge her too quickly, or misinterpret her emotions. His maturity gives her the freedom to be honest. And here's the interesting part: older men don't even try to create this effect. They're not performing maturity, they embody it. They don't wake up thinking, "Let me act calm to attract someone." Their calmness is earned from battles fought and lessons learned. Younger women sense that authenticity. They can feel when a man's confidence is practiced or when it's natural. They can feel when a man is pretending to understand life or when he actually understands it. They can feel when a man is acting stable or when he truly is stable. This is why emotional poise becomes one of the strongest forms of attraction. In a world where everyone is overstimulated, overwhelmed, anxious, and distracted, the man who remains centered becomes rare, and rare becomes valuable. A younger woman looks at an older man and senses that he has lived through storms without letting them destroy who he is. That gives her comfort. It gives her trust. It gives her a sense of emotional grounding simply by being around him. Even in conversation, the difference is visible. An older man listens more than he reacts. He pauses before responding because he's actually processing, not performing. He chooses his words with intention. He doesn't label her emotions as too much because he understands that emotion is part of being human. He has the capacity to hold space for intensity without becoming overwhelmed. This is emotional strength. This is psychological maturity. This is what younger women notice immediately, even if they don't fully understand why they notice it. So when we talk about younger women being drawn to older men, it's never about numbers. It's about presence. It's about emotional intelligence. It's about the stability that comes from experience, heartbreak, healing, growth, and self-awareness. A younger woman isn't choosing an older man for his age. She's choosing him for his steadiness in a world that feels unstable. A grounded man becomes a calming force, a stabilizing presence, a reminder of what it looks like to master yourself instead of losing yourself. That is why younger women look longer than they mean to. That is why they feel drawn to the older man's presence without him saying a word. It's not age, it's evolution. And the truth is simple. She is not drawn to how long you've lived, but to how deeply you've learned. What younger women respond to, what truly draws them in, is not the surface level markers that most men spend their lives obsessing over. It's not the looks, not the social status, and definitely not the decorations of success. Those things might spark curiosity, but they never sustain attraction. What captivates them on a deeper level is emotional stability. The calmness a man carries, the steadiness he radiates, the sense of internal order that makes her feel like she can finally breathe in a world that constantly asks her to hold everything together. That's the real pull. That's the quiet magnetism older men often have without realizing it. Younger women live in a world where emotional chaos is common. Many of them are surrounded by men who are reactive, impulsive, easily triggered, constantly uncertain, unsure of themselves, unsure of their direction, and unsure of what they want. That instability creates emotional noise. It makes them feel unsafe, even if the man means well. A younger man may be energetic, ambitious, charismatic, or charming, but if he lacks emotional stability, none of those qualities matter. Because when a woman senses instability, she automatically understands that she cannot relax in that presence. An emotionally unstable man creates confusion. An emotionally stable man creates clarity. Older men, especially those who've done the internal work, naturally develop a calm emotional foundation, not because they were born with it, but because life has shaped it into them. They have gone through enough conflict to understand that reacting emotionally rarely solves anything. They have gone through enough disappointment to understand the value of patience. They have gone through enough loss to appreciate the importance of emotional control. And they have gone through enough self-doubt to finally realize that confidence isn't built from external validation, it's built from internal truth. Younger women feel this. They don't need it explained to them. Their intuition picks it up instantly. When a man is emotionally stable, his presence anchors them. There is no guessing. There is no walking on eggshells. There is no fear of sudden mood swings or unpredictable reactions. She feels like she can express herself without worrying that he will misinterpret, attack, or collapse. That sense of emotional safety is more attractive than any luxury, any physique, or any shiny surface level quality. Think about it. When a woman looks at a man, the first question her mind subconsciously asks is he safe? Not physically safe, emotionally safe. Can he handle her emotions? Can he stay grounded when things get difficult? Can he remain calm when she is overwhelmed? Can he listen without getting defensive? Can he think before he reacts? These are deeper tests, and most young men fail them simply because they haven't had the time or experience to master themselves yet. But an older man who has learned emotional regulation gives her something she rarely finds: consistency. His mood doesn't swing with every external event. His self-esteem doesn't rise and fall based on compliments or attention. His sense of identity isn't threatened by vulnerability, and his masculine energy doesn't collapse under stress. That steadiness becomes a sanctuary. Younger women don't consciously think, he is emotionally stable, therefore I'm attracted. Instead, they feel an internal peace in his presence. They feel the difference in how he speaks. He doesn't talk to impress, he talks to connect. They feel the difference in how he listens. He doesn't listen to respond, he listens to understand. They feel the difference in how he holds himself. He doesn't shrink under pressure, he remains composed. They feel the difference in how he navigates conflict. He doesn't escalate problems, he diffuses them. This emotional maturity isn't tied to age, but age often refines it. That's why younger women look. Not because older men are older, but because older men often carry an emotional intelligence that makes the relationship feel balanced instead of chaotic. When a man is emotionally stable, the woman doesn't have to play the role of the mother, the therapist, or the emotional supervisor. She gets to rest. She gets to breathe. She gets to be feminine without feeling she must carry both energies at once. Another reason emotional stability becomes so attractive is that it signals reliability. A man who cannot regulate his emotions cannot be consistent. His life becomes unpredictable, and unpredictability destroys trust. But emotional stability creates predictability, the healthy kind, the kind where she knows he means what he says, the kind where she knows he won't suddenly disappear, the kind where she knows he won't turn into someone else when life gets difficult. That predictability forms the foundation of emotional security. In today's world, where everyone is overstimulated, overwhelmed, and easily triggered, emotional stability becomes rare, and what is rare instantly becomes valuable. Younger women can meet dozens of men who look good, dress well, speak confidently, and have ambition, but none of that matters when the man's emotional world is chaotic. One interaction with a calm, grounded older man outshines them all because she instantly feels safe with him, safe to speak, safe to feel, safe to trust. This calmness is not something that can be faked. Emotional stability is felt, not performed. A man who has mastered himself doesn't need to pretend. His tone carries it, his posture carries it, his decisions carry it, even his silence carries it, and that is what younger women respond to. Not the age, never the age, but the emotional presence created by the lessons that age delivered. When a man is rooted in emotional balance, he becomes someone she can lean into instead of someone she must guard herself from. And ultimately, that is what attraction is built on. Not desire, not excitement, not passion, but emotional safety. Everything else becomes secondary when the foundation feels solid. A final truth worth holding on to. What draws her to you is not how you look, but how she feels when you're near. What younger women notice in older men, what truly captures their curiosity and pulls them in on a level they can't even fully explain, is not the surface. It's not the confidence they see today, not the poise, not the calm presence, not the maturity. What really attracts them is the journey that shaped all of that. They are drawn to what older men have survived, because survival leaves marks that no amount of artificial confidence can imitate. And it creates a kind of depth that younger men haven't had enough time to grow into. Younger women look at an older man and feel, even without knowing the details, that he carries history within him. Not the kind of history that weighs him down, but the kind that strengthens the spine and sharpens the mind. They sense the silent battles he fought and won. They sense the heartbreaks he learned from instead of becoming bitter. They sense the failures that matured him instead of breaking him. They sense the disappointments that refined his perspective instead of shrinking his character. That kind of depth cannot be rehearsed. It can only be earned. And here's the part most older men underestimate: your scars are far more attractive than your successes. Your struggles are more magnetic than your achievements. Your resilience is more compelling than your confidence. Because anyone can pretend to be confident. Anyone can mimic charm, anyone can imitate certainty, but surviving real life, surviving heartbreak, setbacks, losses, betrayals, challenges, creates a presence that cannot be duplicated. Younger women instantly feel that difference. They feel the weight of real experience behind your silence. They feel the authenticity behind your calmness. They feel the depth behind your simplicity. When a younger woman looks at an older man, she sees someone who has lived through storms, not someone who's afraid of them. She sees a man whose world didn't end when things fell apart. Someone who didn't collapse under pressure, but learned to rise through it. And that presence carries a message: he is not shaken easily. That emotional strength is what becomes attractive, not because she expects him to protect her from the world, but because she sees a man who learned to protect himself, and that creates a sense of stability, a sense of wisdom, a sense of reliability. Younger women sense when a man has been through emotional fire and emerged with clarity instead of confusion. They sense when a man has experienced loss and learned compassion instead of resentment. They sense when he has struggled but learned to build himself stronger instead of weaker. And that transformation is what makes him stand out. It separates him from younger men who are still experiencing their first failures, their first heartbreaks, their first disappointments. A man who has already lived through several cycles of breaking and rebuilding develops a depth that cannot be rushed. And you can see the difference in how he speaks. An older man who has survived enough life doesn't waste words. He doesn't over-explain. He doesn't argue to win. He doesn't try to prove his worth. His tone carries the calm confidence of someone who knows what he's talking about because he lived it, not because he read it. Younger women pick up on that energy instantly. They feel like they're hearing a man who has lived the truth instead of one who is guessing at it. That survival, those lived experiences, make a man emotionally intelligent in ways younger men rarely are. He doesn't panic when he feels something. He doesn't react from insecurity. He doesn't need to dominate to feel powerful. He understands conflict, not because he avoids it, but because he's experienced enough of it to know how to manage it. He understands emotions, not because he's overly sensitive, but because he's had to confront his own. He understands people, not because he's perfect, but because he has learned from the ones who stayed and the ones who left. Younger women admire this because it gives them something rare: emotional depth combined with emotional steadiness. A man who has survived real life becomes more empathetic, but not weak. More understanding, but not passive. More aware, but not paranoid. He becomes a man who knows what matters and what doesn't. And that clarity is incredibly attractive because it simplifies the emotional environment around him. Younger women feel safer being vulnerable with a man who has already walked through his own vulnerability. Another thing younger women notice is that a man who has survived enough doesn't live in fear anymore. He doesn't fear rejection because he's already experienced it and learned that it didn't destroy him. He doesn't fear losing people because he understands that life continues. He doesn't fear failure because he's already rebuilt himself. That fearlessness isn't loud or aggressive. It's quiet and grounded. It's in the way he moves through life. It's in the way he makes decisions. It's in the way he carries himself. And it's an energy younger women rarely find in younger men whose identity is still forming and still fragile. This is why younger women look longer than they expected. Not because they're mesmerized by age, but because they're intrigued by the strength age created. They are drawn to the man who didn't break, the man who didn't give up, the man who didn't lose himself in the chaos. They admire a man who survived not just life, but himself, his doubts, his fears, his insecurities, his mistakes. A man who has faced his own shadows becomes someone who can finally stand in the light without pretending. Survival gives a man a presence that younger women feel on a spiritual level. They sense the weight of his wisdom without him preaching. They sense the depth of his understanding without him explaining. They sense the resilience of his character without him showcasing it. That is the beauty of survival. It shapes you in ways words can never fully capture. And that is the reason younger women look at older men with curiosity, with intrigue, with respect, and sometimes with attraction, because they see the story, not the age, and they feel the strength behind the story. A final truth to carry with you: she is not drawn to the years you've lived, but to the battles you've won to become the man you are today.